Special thanks to Martian Melodies for providing us with today's MSM draw. Submit a prompt with a hashtag MSM draw in this video for a chance for it to be drawn in the next one. Hi everyone! Today we're going to be taking your ideas from the community tab and drawing them. Earlier this week, I asked for your comments about the upcoming Water Island Mythical. I received quite a few ideas for the Mythical, and I've taken the time to draw up 30 concept sketches to get a visualization of what we could be seeing in the next few weeks. I tried to take ideas that covered a wide variety of designs, so even if your design didn't get drawn, you can rest assured that I took the time to read all y'all's ideas. So without further ado, I think the Water Island Mythical would look like a mix of a hare and a water deer, a type of deer that grows fangs instead of antlers, with its back having coral that branches with mouth-like protrusions. This one sounded a bit like Epic Blabbit, so I went for a quadrupedal design. In the end, I wonder if there could be any tweaks I could do to make the face more expressive. For most of these monsters, the commenters didn't specify a name, so I had the additional challenge of coming up with MSM-worthy puns, which I'm pretty sure I dropped the ball on multiple occasions. At any rate, this is Swashbuck. Swashbuckler, wash, and buck, which is what both male deer and rabbits are called. I was thinking a literal leopard seal, a hybrid of the two animals with a seal-like body and leopard-like head and tail, with leopard patterns. Its sound would be a sorta calm saxophone tune. For many of the more aquatic designs, I pictured them floating like bowhead. It makes sense in the water at least. That's what this leopard seal is doing. Here is Mayuelo, which is derived from meow, bellow, mellow, and yellow, which is what I pictured the primary color would be. In my opinion, I think it's going to be sort of like an octopus or a squid, and it uses holes on the tips of its tentacles to produce a trumpet-like sound. It could perhaps be related to Crunchy. This octopus trumpet idea fit nicely into one of my very old monster designs. It was essentially the same thing, an octopus that stores air in its mantle and blows it through its tentacles. It even has a patch on it because the mantle is very delicate. I named it after its original design, Trumpate. It has 8 trumpets. Aren't I the cleverest? The constellation hinting at the Water Mythical resembles the outline of a crab. I can imagine it most likely being a percussionist, but for the lulz, having it play the smallest violin in the world and referencing SpongeBob would be so much fun. I figured that if we were making a Mr. Krabs reference, we might as well go all out. So he's got the big meaty claws, as well as the iconic eyelash thingies, in addition to his squiggly nose, which has been repurposed as a hair. I chose Quubber for the name because it's really fun to say. It's made of the words blubber, rub, and crab, as well as the K in reference to Mr. Krabs. Some ideas I had was a seahorse that would make some sort of trumpet sound for its song. I had a neat idea with this monster to make it either the common ancestor or at least a cousin to both the Sox and the Flugel. I gave it characteristics of both. And yes, I know that's the opposite of how the specialization of a species works, but it's a fun design reference. The name, however, is too clunky for MSM. In my opinion, it could be much more streamlined, but its current name is Hippocornet, a mix of hippocampus, a seahorse, and cornet, a brass horn. I'm not exactly basing it off the constellation, but a witch-like kappa, which is a Japanese yokai with water in its head, with 4 hands that would make a clap sound and could possibly make a splash with its water head. Its name would be Klappa, for obvious reasons, and it would have a timid personality, opposite to Hehehe. Ah yes, the Klappa. I like the idea of a kappa monster, so hopefully it will show up as the Dream Mythical or something. 42 Ostriches wanted it to be shy and the opposite of Hehehe, so I drew it with its head tucked into its shell. It does look like something similar though. Ah! I think the Water Mythical would be a mermaid breed in the Pom-Pom family. I think this because it gives a tropical vibe, but with my singing monster's touch. I think it would look good on a rock or a small island with a palm tree, with the occasional falling down of a coconut, while it's playing the steel drum or singing its lovely tune. Now this is epic. I love the idea of a mythical mermaid Pomely member. And without being too self-praising, I think the execution of the design is really good too. Classic mermaid with the retro beach hair. In typical Pomely fashion, I went with Swoona, as its mellifluous singing causes all those who listen to swoon. I feel like the Water Mythical would be a hermit crab. It taps its shell, which is made out of metal and is a little bit rusted, with its claws to make a steel pan or a drum sound. I feel like the face would be cutesy, sort of like the faces of the monsters on the continent. The second out of many crab monsters. A hermit crab with a rusty shell is pretty topical to modern events, and I like the idea of an artificial shell. I couldn't pass up the opportunity and called it Rust Station. Haha, I'm going to cry. A hammerhead shark, but its head is an accordion, or its eyes are on smaller accordions. Maybe it could have keys for teeth to not be too similar to bellowfish. This could potentially be a pummel cousin, so I gave it similar hands. Out of all of the images in my brain when drawing this monster, none reached the depths of horror that this particular design afflicts upon my soul. With no fault to Ruben, of course, as this was my burden to take and I made it scary. This name, Shaq, is a mashup of shark and accordion. Shaq are also known to be very good at playing monster basketball. Oh man. It's a little crab with a sky blue shell. It has seashells around its waist. It is a relative to Tutu, so it's kind of shaped like one. It has those antenna thingies that crabs have, and they have their eyes on top of them, and it makes a heart shape with them, holding them in that shape. It has a companion. It is a rock that resembles a ballerina stage. It has short feet and no legs, arms or hands. It has a casual face expression with a stone jaw, light orange eyes with no pupils, and no ears or nose. The idea of convergent evolution in my stinging monsters really resonated with me. A monster that is completely different to another ends up looking quite similar. In this case, a tutu has seemingly undergone carcinization and evolved into a crab. Or a crab has gone through, tutuification? Either way, crab tutu. I like its rock stage, feels very on brand of a mutual relationship monster. I ended up calling it Shishu to echo Tutu's name, and also as a reference to the infernal seashells on the seashore tongue twister. A clam that has a pearl that sings inside. The clam opens and closes, making a percussion noise, and the pearl makes a steel drum sound mixed with a choir. For this bivalve inspired monster, I started with a standard pearl and a clam, as per Flicky Donut's request. Then the MSM design fever overtook me and I gave the clam eyes, and feet, and teeth. It ended up looking pretty cool. It plays quite a few instruments, so I gave it the name Oyster Strut. I have no idea of what it actually may be, but we need that little sphere with a party hat looking horn in the bottom right to be evolved into a semi-decent idea because he is so precious. When I first drew the Mythical Monster idea page, I included a reference to the Glubpole of Party Island. Turns out quite a few people were interested in seeing it developed into a full concept, so the baby form of the Glubber Lagoon was spruced up and turned into a mythical. It looks like the extreme opposite of Party, which I find hilarious. Always thought about the Water Mythical being a snake, maybe synth or something as the instrument. Ah yes, a synth snake. In order to make your mind-stinging monsters proportionally accurate snakes fit into their presupposed tile spaces, you must curl them around like Zister. Or Zyster, which is acceptable. Or Zeester, if you're a maniac. Anyway, yeah. Snake evolved into Cobra, which delivers synth waves through the unicorn horn in its head. Its hood markings look like the classic Vaporwave sun art, and its belly grooves are reminiscent of square audio waves. And of course, its name must be Thynth, because of the snake's pronounced overbite. I think the Water Mythical will be another symbiotic relationship, this time between a sea turtle-like creature and a crab-like creature. The crab hits panels on the turtle's shell, making a steel pan sound. The panels glow a little bit when hit too, simply because it's visually appealing. The turtle might also make a sort of squeak or chirp, but I don't think that would fit into Mythical Island as much. I can't think of a name as of now, but Turtleluza has been my placeholder for a while. Turtle and Luza for light. Next we have Turtleluza. I went real old school and gave the turtle a type of beak you would find on old cartoons. Linux was looking for a different possible name related to turtles and light, so I present the option to call it Flortuga, Flores and Tortuga specifically. And if you were looking for the name of the crab, it would be Crustache. It's quite similar to my prediction, which we'll get to eventually. I'd imagine this Water Mythical to be based off of a sea slug, lobster, nautilus, giant squid, and anglerfish. It has an iridescent body shaped like a sea slug, 2 lobster-like claws, one red with spots, the other blue with stripes, a nautilus shell, a giant squid's fins, and an anglerfish lure with a hand protrusion holding the light lure. It also has eyes resembling the Psychic Island critters. It's also a distant sponge cousin. It has a leaf on its tail which looks like a sea anemone. This one was quite fun to put together. It's almost like a puzzle, if the completed puzzle was an affront to humanity. But in all honesty, this is a sick design. I especially like the goofiness of the hand holding the light. It almost looks like a corrupted version of the Cherubble, which is a concept that we'll explore in a few minutes. I gave this monster the name Snailgum, a snail amalgam. I think it should be a jellyfish that uses his oral arms for a tropical string instrument sound. His appearance should look calm and cool. This jellyfish monster is pretty standard. I picture its little tentacles would vibrate or get knocked forward to make its sound. If the concept was fully colored, the pattern on the bell would be reminiscent of ocean waves. The name, Jellybell, is almost like Jellybillies, but with the phonetics reversed. This is because I want to emphasize the bell, which is both the anatomy of a jellyfish and a reference towards the jelly bell's shape. What I think my own prediction would be based on Mosasaurus mixed with a crocodile. Also, it would wear royal aquatic armor on its back, and also the tails itself. Also light cores on its helmet with color of yellow. It would fly in gravity when it's idle. There's always one that does that. This is Chompion, the Chomp Champion. It gives the vibe that it's a guardian from an ancient underwater city, perhaps the monster equivalent of Atlantis. I picture the armor would be a nice gold color. Sea cucumber with a ukulele, that's it. This one I took in as a joke, but it could actually be developed into a decent idea. As it stands, here is a cucumber with a uke. A cuke. Surgeon, an urchin with a spyglass strapped to its eye, and believes that there are humans in the monster world somewhere. Its needles poke wooden boards for some needed percussion. Now this is a pretty coherent idea for a monster. Good name too. I rolled with the pirate theme of the monster and gave him an eye patch, spike beard, and mast spike with a flag on it. Surgeon could use it to try to get the attention of humans as he searches for them with his spyglass. Literal guitarfish. That name alone is perfect for the basis. Ah yes, the guitarfish. MSM inspiration waiting to happen. I wanted to have it be a symbiotic monster, so I drew a pretty standard jellyfish that plucks the strings. In the end, it looks almost like a stand-up bass, but we can be a little lenient with the design. Because guitarfish are in fact rays, I named it Stringray, and it's perfect. My idea for a Water Mythical would be a kind of eel that has holes around its body which make the sounds of a flute. It has a tired face and fins next to some of the holes. When it comes to eels, usually people think of the electric ones. I wanted to subvert expectations and went with a moray instead. It hides in caves and makes a flute noise through the holes in its body, sort of like a fleechworm. Maybe this is where the Wellbox got his design inspiration from. The name, Morinet, is a simple mix of moray and clarinet. Underwater bomb. Very spiky, floats up and down. Called Dudette, does a bit of a sizzle and a boom to make the beat go hard. Sea mines are quite creepy, and I'm pretty sure some mechanophobia plays into that feeling. Either way, a monster that is a weapon would be a first in MSM, I think. What if this is the monster that Trouble encountered and based Schlepp on? I made it have a similar body plan, spikes, and even the iconic worm mouth using the chain instead. A whale with one eye on its head where its blowhole should be, fish circling it, and the whale blows out of its mouth to make a singing sound, and the fish swim around to make a long sloshing sound, and periodically the whale burbs out some bubbles to make a drum sound. It is long, has 2 fins with green moss on the edges of them, its mouth is full of shrimp and moss, and it has barnacles that may open up, and it also has a bubble-like throat pouch that's see-through and inflates when the whale breathes in. This monster in particular had a lot of features to exhibit. Due to the fact that it harbors sea life, I gave it a submarine twist and gave it a periscope eye, propeller tail, and window-like markings on its throat and sides. I also pictured it would be black and white like an orca. A boxing jellyfish that is a boxer. For its sound, it punches a punching bag for a drum sound. This is another idea with a good philosophy behind the concept. A boxing box jellyfish is a pretty funny idea, and of course you could put an aquatic spin on everything with the design of the punching bag and the garb of the jellyfish. The name is a terrible pun and I love it. Meet fisticuffs. That pummel costume isn't actually a costume. It's a catfish monster that is disguised as another monster. A literal catfish. We've seen this guy pop up in a couple of Extravaganza teasers. I personally think that it is a pummel costume, but it would be hilarious if it were an actual catfish hiding under a disguise. I gave it the name Bait Swish, given the fact that it's a bait and switch, eats bait, and is a fish. Loch Ness Monster Automaton. I think MSM is getting dangerously close to adding an automaton monster. Whatever form this monster will take, be it animalistic or humanoid or completely random, I think it will be immediately recognizable by its goofy face, kind of like a Ditto from Pokemon. The Loch Ness Monster would be pretty large and intimidating if it didn't look like the artist gave up on life when he got to the face. This glorious creature is called Wagon. Dwagon who was. Maybe it will be based off of a mantis shrimp and make it play a flute. Monsters say that if you gaze at its beautiful colors, you get hypnotized. And last but not least, another crustacean monster. In theory, this sounds pretty similar to Krillby, so maybe this mantis shrimp is a distant cousin. Or perhaps, because mantis shrimp are infamously aggressive, this monster was jealous of the love Krillby was getting and decided to be a woodwind crustacean as well. This is Rainbow, as it probably would be the most eye-wateringly neon monster in the game, and plays a choral instrument not unlike an oboe. Now we can move on to my prediction. In one of the Mythical Island trailers, we see constellations depicting the upcoming monsters. Cherubble, then Hiei, then this thing. I'm going to try my best to recreate a monster that keeps this general shape. I am also a steel pan crab supporter, and it looks like to me that a little crab is on top of a bigger horseshoe crab. I named it Clawmor, from claw, armor, and clamor. Next, I figured that I'd take a crack at MSM Pokegamer's theory of the constellation. He pictured a jelly-like six-legged insectoid monster that taps its belly for a steel pan. I didn't really consider how the monster could hide its face, as per his theory, but upon reflection I figure it could pull its head down into its body to cover up the lower half of its face. It is made of jelly after all. The name is really fun to say. Stackarachna is a combo of stack and arachnid. It's totally not ripped off from this guy. Then I drew the monster that was the inspiration for this entire video. This could be a possible Dream Mythical. It's basically a starfish that hoards all the shiny things that fall into the ocean. It's based off of the Crown of Thorns starfish, and is both crowned and thorny. It thinks itself as the ruler of the living ocean, but it's really just a self-imposed title. Its name would be Zarfish, which took me an embarrassingly long time to come up with. What if we draw a happy little stingray monster? Oh no! So, a billion ideas for a Water Island Mythical. Do I think any will resemble the actual monster? I cannot honestly say. Although I'm certain the Mythical will be a crab of some sort, I'm very intrigued to see if the Dream Mythical will resemble any of these ideas. Once again, thank you to all those who entered their ideas for the community post. I had a lot of fun drawing all these. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments. You have been watching the Creeptanium channel, and I will see you all later.